perhaps you've just been discarded, disposed of like you're a piece of rubbish with no thought or emotion, almost definitely with no explanation or closure, and most probably with a cowardly disappearing act performed as though this is a normal way of breaking up with somebody. Or perhaps you're smack bang in the middle of a relationship that seems quite volatile and often combative, and most of the time, totally confusing. You constantly feel like you're failing your partner, or at least that's what they're always telling you that you're doing. You feel as though you're continually walking on eggshells around them to avoid triggering their fury. And you're now beginning to wonder if perhaps it's just possible that you're in a relationship with a narcissist. Well, I'm about to give you a guide to all of the stages and phases that you can expect to go through in a relationship with a narcissist and exactly how it will play out. Hi, I'm Steve Richards, and I'm a victim of emotional abuse, and I've recently been discarded by a covert or vulnerable narcissist. And this is my journey to recovery. Now, you're probably wondering how on earth I can make such a bold claim as to tell you that I can predict exactly how your relationship will pan out, or that I can sum up exactly how your romantic entanglement with your narcissistic abuser went, and all with such certainty and clarity. Well, it's not difficult, because they all follow the very same set pattern. When I was brutally discarded by my abuser with the trademark prolonged ghosting and avoidance strategy, I took the time to get some answers as to what was happening by searching up why someone that I'd been in a relationship with, both platonic and then ultimately romantic, for 7 years would then just completely disappear on me without any kind of warning or anything that even resembled an explanation. It didn't take long at all to discover that in fact she was clearly suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. Now, that in itself was chilling enough, but what made me feel even more foolish still is that everything that she had put me through was absolutely textbook and was lifted straight from the narcissist's instruction manual. Nothing makes you feel more humiliated than finding out that none of your relationship was as it seemed. The whole thing was just a manipulative pantomime created with smoke and mirrors, and with one primary aim in mind: to fan the narcissist's ego and to bolster their cripplingly fragile self-esteem. Obviously, once I'd learnt the specific phases that each relationship follows, I felt completely hollow, because it was as clear as day that I had been exactly the same as every other victim that she had parasitically attached herself to and had sucked emotionally dry. Despite all of the superlative and gushing sentiment that I was her one and only, her soulmate, and her split apart, I literally meant nothing more to her than any of the other back catalogue of ex-partners whom she had persistently badmouthed and had apparently been the victim of. One, a sexually violent alcoholic, a couple of philandering man whores, a racist, and even another who had hired a private detective to follow her around. I was also repeatedly told of her ex-husband, whom she had claimed had habitually subdued her with pharmaceutical drugs in an effort to control her. But despite all of these supposedly despicable men that had treated her so badly, I had now found myself added to this list, systematically devalued and consigned to the scrap heap in exactly the same way as each and every one of them had been. What was most disturbing to me is that despite the fact I had been made to feel as though what we had shared was magical and unique, celestial even, it wasn't. It was the common or garden shitpoke that you get from a narcissist. What we had seemingly shared wasn't remarkable at all. It was tired and it was predictable. A tried and tested formula that she had perfected, but it wasn't even original to her. It was lifted directly from the Narcissist's handbook. Hence the reason for naming this channel the Narcissistic Blueprint, because they're as formulaic and as predictable as night following day. Relationships with individuals who exhibit narcissistic personality disorder present a series of dynamics that can be complex, confusing, and challenging to navigate, and will almost definitely leave lasting scars, because they're designed to. The whole relationship cycle has been designed and perfected to provide the narcissist with the fuel that they require, and unfortunately, that also requires the total degradation, humiliation, and ultimately, the destruction of you. There are a consistent series of phases that characterize the narcissist's approach to each and every single relationship, with every stage consisting of a well-trodden pattern of manipulation, control, and dominance, and inevitably all culminating in an abandonment that can deeply affect you long after they have carried out their cowardly vanishing act. Understanding these distinct phases can help make sense of what you're dealing with, and for those of us who find ourselves entangled in these kinds of toxic relationships, it will also help in navigating the path towards recovering ourselves after having been under the emotional influence of the manipulative narcissist and strongly bonded to someone who didn't ever truly care about us or form any kind of meaningful attachment to us. Now, just quickly before I get into the blueprint of the narcissistic relationship, I do have a small favor to ask of you. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'd really appreciate it if you could perhaps leave a comment. What I'm aiming for is to build a community of support, to exchange stories, and for us to share our experiences. Thank you. Now, as promised, here are the stages virtually every relationship with a narcissist will undoubtedly follow. The narcissist initiates this phase by meticulously studying your behavior, interests, beliefs, and weaknesses. They aim to gather valuable information that will allow them to create a false persona that encapsulates all of your deepest, darkest desires. But it's not just a reconnaissance to discover what you desire. They spend just as much time and effort gaining insight into your most deep-seated fears and anxieties. Now, this might be related to a trauma from much earlier in your life, which it was in my case, the fear of abandonment. And all this research allows them to not only create the perfect mask to draw you in, it also gives them the ammunition to exploit your weaknesses and cause maximum stress and damage during the later phases of the narcissistic shit show that they call a relationship. Now, during this observation period, the narcissist will subtly showcase their charisma and their magnetism without direct engagement, thus arousing your interest and enticing you into the relationship. Because whilst they have firmly locked their crosshairs on you as their victim, they will want the approach to ultimately come from you, because this is another significant boost to their ego and also verifies to the narcissist that their manipulative charm offensive is working exactly as planned. For the narcissist, choosing the right partner at this stage is extremely important and is not entered into lightly. In this phase, the narcissist makes contact with you and will engage in the act of love bombing, which involves bombarding you with excessive adulation, affection, attention, and flattery. The euphoric feeling generated by this tactic can't be underestimated because they've already done their homework during the observation phase. They know exactly what makes you tick, and also, perhaps more importantly, what it is that you are lacking, how you don't feel seen, appreciated, or understood. The narcissist is the answer to all of your prayers, a dream come true. The incredibly powerful effect of the love bombing during the approach renders you completely vulnerable and extremely susceptible to the narcissist's false charm. It will be here that the narcissist will appear deeply invested in the relationship and will rapidly accelerate its intensity, perhaps through almost obsessive texting or gushing praise and flattery. Make no mistake, it will be intoxicating and will leave you almost giddy and bamboozled by the intense and apparently divine connection that the two of you share. Whatever tactic they employ, they will adopt a contrived sense of almost indestructible bonding. They will repeatedly enforce the notion that your partnership was written in the stars, it was fate, it was simply meant to be. They will be very effusive with their manufactured feelings for you, and this will take place very early in the relationship in order to get you invested and under their control as quickly as is possible. Here, the narcissist will now have refined their idealized persona, which has been tailored directly to you. Now they've created your dream partner, they're highlighting their accomplishments, their connections, desirability, and their material possessions in order to captivate, beguile, and charm the very pants off you. Through this created persona, they generate an aura of success, not to mention an aloof desirability, ensuring that you now perceive them as particularly exceptional and worthy of extreme admiration, worthy of putting on a pedestal even. And it's during this phase that they create an inextricable emotional bond by portraying the two of you as perfect partners and even mirroring your interests, thoughts, and ideas. It's almost as if the two of you are one. By molding and adapting their personality to reflect yours back at you, it in turn fortifies the emotional bond and consolidates your trust, creating an unshakable and an innate belief in your relationship with them. Here, the narcissist will often use future faking as a tactic to paint the illusion of a deep long-term investment and a commitment to a shared life with you. And this in turn cements your trust that the relationship is indeed a shared goal. And it's this trust and unshakable belief that the narcissist will subsequently use to keep you anchored within the relationship as the emotional chaos that is just around the corner ensues. Arguably the most protracted and emotionally draining phase of the car crash, which is the relationship with a narcissist. Here, the narcissist capitalizes on your compassion and your empathy by emphasizing their fragility and their extreme vulnerability. You were selected because you display these character traits in abundance, and it's now that they're able to exploit the trust that they built during the glamorization phase. They will persistently engineer drama and crises to preserve emotional control and dependency. So now you, as their empathic savior, will seek to prioritize the narcissist's needs ahead of your own. And this will bring about the gradual erosion of your self-esteem and begin to deprogram you from recognizing your own needs, personal boundaries, and your identity outside of the bond. You will become completely preoccupied with tirelessly working to ensure that the seemingly fragile narcissist feels safe. By employing this tactic of wearing away your sense of self and the sustained confusion of being made to feel as though you are consistently letting them down, despite your very best efforts, they will simultaneously drip feed you with just enough charm and good behavior to remind you of the golden period. This will inevitably cause you to redouble your efforts to placate and reassure them, and as a result, you will give up even more of yourself in the process, all in a desperate bid to get back to the heady days of the love bombing and the idealization phase. This debilitating loss of self will become increasingly evident to the narcissist and maybe even to others outside of the relationship, but it won't be apparent to you, who by this point is likely to have now developed a trauma bond to your abuser. Contrary to popular belief, the discarding phase isn't always sudden. This phase can unfold gradually and be painfully protracted, though it's also likely that you will have become so conditioned to the silent treatments and the repeated episodes of narcissistic shelving that as a result the discard may feel far more sudden than it actually is. The narcissist will have undoubtedly been planning their exit strategy for some time, but they might still require the relationship for various reasons, which they will keep hidden. Usually this happens whilst they're ensuring that their new supply is firmly fixed in place. They're unlikely to abandon you completely until they've made certain that the new supply is performing exactly as expected and is providing the required levels of fuel. They will then start the process of withdrawal, depriving you of the most fundamental emotional intimacy and support. Now, this phase is filled with gaslighting, accusations, sustained criticism and devaluation, anger and abuse, and a distinct and palpable lack of commitment, loyalty, or accountability. At this point, you will now be left to your own devices, but usually will remain under the illusion created by the narcissist that it's actually your fault and that you deserve this current distance and punishment. It might also be that the narcissist will request time away to compartmentalize, reflect, or to self-protect. Whatever the excuse, it will inevitably take the form of a prolonged silent treatment. And it can become particularly difficult if this space allows you enough clarity to see how dysfunctional the relationship has become, or if you've gained any awareness of what narcissism really is and how it presents itself in interpersonal relationships. This awareness poses a significant threat to the narcissist and the fragile mask of their false self. Gaining an awareness of narcissism is more often than not the beginning of your fall from grace and inevitably brings with it the end of the relationship. This phase, as with the breakdown of any relationship, is the most harrowing of all. But in the Narcissistic Relationship Blueprint, it's designed to destroy whatever precious reserves you have left. Its very purpose is to leave you broken, confused, and bonded to your abuser. Everything about every aspect of a relationship with a narcissist is a power play. Because they're hollow and empty inside and filled with so much self-loathing, they need to exert control and dominance over everyone in their life just to feel good about themselves. As the narcissist prepares to end the relationship and orchestrates their departure, they may make one last-ditch attempt to regain control and preserve their self-image. They may offer up hollow, meaningless apologies, and they may feign remorse, all in an effort to manipulate you into believing that they possess redeeming qualities, but largely to absolve themselves of any guilt later on, and so as not to tarnish their internalized glowing reputation. Irrespective of your response, the narcissist will ultimately go about rewriting history and constructing a narrative that portrays them as the victim, because this allows them to easily absolve themselves from any blame, guilt, responsibility, or accountability. They're now able to move seamlessly into the next relationship as the wronged party, the fragile victim that the next empath on their hit list will invariably think that they can save. They are free from responsibility for all of their vile behavior. You are now the villain, and they are the fragile victim that just needs to be loved, cared for, and appreciated. The cycle is complete. Oh, no, wait. No, because that's not all, is it? A relationship with someone who suffers from narcissistic personality disorder is the gift that keeps on giving. Because even when they've drained you of everything, all of your resources have been mined and they've decided that the new supply that they have in place is ready to move on to, even when they've devalued you, stripped you of all of your dignity, and then gained plenty of fuel from systematically breaking you down and watching you trying to keep your head above water whilst they cruelly and callously ignore you, all before completely disappearing on you in the most detached and emotionally immature way possible, it still isn't over. Because then comes the hoovering. What you have to understand is that in the narcissistic relationship cycle, even when it's over, that still isn't the end. Because once your soul is bound to that of the narcissist, in their poisoned mind, they think that they own you for the rest of eternity. They might have unceremoniously abandoned you, cast you onto the scrap heap as though you were less than nothing, but as far as they're concerned, you still belong to them. Even if they don't want you, you're still theirs. The best way to view a narcissist is the way that they actually are, a spoiled and emotionally underdeveloped child. To them, the whole world is a giant toy box and all the people in it are just toys. When you first enter into the narcissist's life, you're like a shiny brand new toy that they just have to have. Even if you belong to someone else, they will stop at nothing to get you because you're the best toy that there is, the one that they haven't got, the one that's all shiny and new. To begin with, they're besotted with you. You're better than all of the other toys and they want to play with you every single day. None of the other toys were ever this much fun. But then gradually, the novelty wears off. There are just so many other toys out there that they haven't played with yet. Why would they want to play with you every single day when there are all these others just waiting to be played with out there as well? Yet another new toy will catch their eye, it's bright and vibrantly colourful, and they haven't played with this one before, and the endorphin rush that they get when they think about getting a new toy, well, that's exhilarating. And it's now that you can expect to find yourself consigned to the scrap heap, thrown into the narcissist's toy box with all the other sad rag dolls and soft toys with an eye missing or a torn ear. It's always possible that somewhere down the line, the shiny new action figure that replaced you will unexpectedly break, or the batteries might drain without warning. And that's when the narcissist will undoubtedly open up the toy box to have a rummage through all of the old toys of the past and remember that this one or that one gave them some enjoyable playtime. And you will be unceremoniously dragged out and expected to give them some momentary happiness on demand. But you're never going to be the new toy again. They will constantly be looking for something to replace what they have right now. They might try and dust you off once in a while when supply is short, but it's not because they're looking to make you the favorite once again. It's because they're desperate, and you are dependable enough to fill a gap. And never lose sight of this. There are plenty of other old toys in that toy box that can do the job just as well as you can. As always, I hope that you found this video useful and maybe even insightful. And if you have, then why not click on one of these videos where you'll get to see more of this face that only a mother or an emotionally abusive narcissist could pretend to love, and you might just get a few answers along the way. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And most of all, be kind to yourself. Together, we will get through this.